Hi, I'm T1J.
Follow me.
Okay, so as we all know, a joke is something that you do or say with the intention of being funny. Jokes are usually meant to entertain or amuse other people, but they can also be used for self-entertainment. For example, when I call and order a pizza using a fake and terrible British accent, it's funny to me. Not gonna demonstrate it, for your sake. Now, whether or not a joke is funny is largely a matter of opinion, although, like other forms of art and entertainment, we've discovered a few things that seem to be generally true about humor across cultures. For example, unexpected things are usually funnier than expected things. In fact, subverting expectations is one of the basic ways to craft a joke. Wright, one of my all-time favorite comedians, is a master of putting your mind in one space and then completely flipping that idea on its head.
I woke up one morning, she asked me if I slept good. I said no, I made a few mistakes.
This tactic of surprise can be achieved in various ways, and writers and performers have been exploring different ways to subvert our expectations since the beginning. Wright uses wordplay and absurdity, but other comedians make observations that feel so true to us that the surprise comes in the fact that we just never thought about it like that. And sometimes this same effect is achieved without words through an unexpected physical stunt. So one other way that comedians attempt to subvert our expectations is through the use of taboos. By definition, a taboo is something that goes against what we normally think of as proper. So we're not fully mentally prepared for such serious topics to be treated in such a lighthearted manner. And this sometimes results in jokes that many people might find offensive. Now, of course, some people are extremely sensitive, but I think that most of us can handle a little bit of edgy humor. But there are still some topics that people say are too taboo, things that you should just never joke about. A lot of time this is based on your bias and your experiences. Like if you use a wheelchair, you're probably more likely to find jokes at the expense of people who use wheelchairs uncomfortable or offensive. But of course, plenty of people can appreciate a joke even if they're the ones being made fun of. Now, some people seem to assert that some jokes are objectively not funny because they are offensive or because they target certain groups, but this is obvious nonsense. This is an opinion dressed up like a fact. As I said before, whether or not something is funny is mostly a matter of opinion. That's obvious, right? Like almost everyone I know hates The Big Bang Theory, but it's one of the most popular shows ever, and I kind of like it myself. Well, mainly I just like Amy. People have in the past, do currently, and will continue in the future to laugh at jokes that you don't think are funny. Please get used to it. So some people don't go as far as saying that those jokes are objectively bad, but they do say that we have a moral duty to avoid some types of jokes. For many progressives, this might include jokes that belittle or stereotype a vulnerable group, like racial minorities or the mentally ill. For President Trump, this might include any and all jokes that make fun of him personally. And I think that this is an idea that's worth considering as long as you understand that it's an opinion with which people are free to disagree and debate, which is what I'm about to do, kinda. So there's this idea that making jokes that, for example, exploit racial stereotypes or trivialize rape are problematic because they normalize these behaviors and discourage people from taking these serious topics as seriously as they should be taken. And as far as I know, this is kind of a wild assertion for which there's no real evidence. I mean, it sounds plausible on the surface, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's true for children whose psyche is still developing, but the idea that like hearing racist jokes makes an otherwise non-racist person become a little bit more okay with racism is just kind of absurd. It's pretty cynical and condescending, actually. This is very similar to an argument that we've been having for the past 20 years about whether or not violent video games make society more violent. Spoiler, they almost certainly don't. There is some evidence that people who already show signs of prejudice can feel emboldened or validated by things like racist and sexist jokes. But at that point, we have to ask, is this really the comedian's responsibility? I don't think it is. Like, that's another human being. They're not being brainwashed or controlled. How they react to ideas is their own problem. It's no one's job to babysit them and keep them in line, certainly not any comedians. Part of the inherent nature of a joke is that it's not supposed to be taken seriously. If you take it seriously, whether by feeling validated by it or by getting mad at it, that just doesn't make sense. It's like literally you're interacting with the thing wrong. It's like using a hammer to comb your hair. Like, that's not the correct way to use that thing. Now, of course, some people use jokes to help express ideas that they actually believe, and it's up to us to interpret when that's actually happening. Consider this Sarah Silverman joke.
Because who's gonna complain about a rape joke? I mean, I would say rape victims, but they're traditionally not complainers.
To the untrained ear, it might just sound like she's shitting on rape victims, but in reality, she's using this joke to make a commentary on something she's actually troubled by, as she conveniently explains in the very same clip.
I know, that's a tasteless joke about the fact that rape victims often don't report rape.
So in spite of the fact that Sarah Silverman made a joke at the expense of a vulnerable group, I don't think you can argue based on that clip that Sarah Silverman supports rape or thinks rape is not that serious. If you could say that, it would probably be appropriate to basically despise her, but I don't think you can. Now, you can obviously still have the opinion that that joke wasn't funny. You can think it was inappropriate or in poor taste. You could choose to boycott her. You could choose to never give her any money. You could write an article criticizing her. You could start an I Hate Sarah Silverman club. And this goes for her or any comedian or writer or actor or YouTuber that offends you. And you should do those things if you feel compelled to. Just like any comedian has the right to express themselves through comedy, we have the right to criticize and react to them. And if enough people, or the right people, find a comedian distasteful, they may end up paying for it career-wise. PewDiePie was dropped from his network after making offensive jokes. I don't agree with that decision, but it's not my decision. This is the risk that old Felix took when he decided to make those kinds of jokes. The right to free expression through comedy does not guarantee anyone the right to an audience or the right to financial compensation. But as we know, PewDiePie is gonna be alright. A lot of offensive comedians are very popular, and I'm pretty sure that most of the people who enjoy them aren't terrible people. So when you criticize a comedian that you find offensive, don't pretend that what you are expressing is anything other than a subjective opinion. Don't place yourself in some imagined position of moral authority. And side note, I've talked about this a bunch of times, but I always want to be sure to distinguish between performance and just living your everyday life. In everyday life, I'm a very strong advocate of avoiding offensive jokes unless you're in company that you know for a fact will understand you and not be pissed off. Needlessly offending people in your day-to-day life, even if it is just a joke, just kind of makes you an asshole. And I don't support being an asshole. On the other hand, I don't think that performers like entertainers and artists have this obligation. They have a vision for how they want their work to be, and I think they should be allowed to carry it out. The point of art is to entertain us, but to also make us think and to also make us feel things. And no one said that those things have to always be agreeable. And just because you don't like a piece of art doesn't mean it's not art. But again, like anything else, we're free to criticize and react. If we think that some performance is a god-awful piece of garbage, we're allowed to express that. The issue is when we start to create dogmatic rules about what's okay and not okay to joke about, or when we arbitrarily claim the moral high ground. I've always said that people are just way too invested in their own opinions, and a lot of people just can't handle it when their opinions aren't validated. If you find a comedian unfunny or distasteful, just avoid them. Don't watch or listen to them. Change the channel, click the X. Don't try to defame them or erroneously paint them as villains who are ruining the world. And don't blame them for other assholes who are misinterpreting their work. That's just me though. What do you think? Thank you for watching my video. Be sure to subscribe to this channel if you'd like to see more videos like this. If you'd like to say hi, ask a question, or leave feedback, feel free to email me at hello@theonejanitor.com. And if you find any value in my videos, or if you just want to support me, consider becoming a patron on Patreon. I've recently updated some of the rewards for patrons. You might want to check that out. One of the new ones that I'm excited about is that people who pledge $3 per video will get to decide the title of an upcoming Q&A video. You can make it anything you want, within reason. And remember, be honest, be assertive, be kind, and be open-minded. Stay Hanko.